From Nairobi, Kenya, you're listening to the Kuza Podcast, brought to you by kuza.com.
Kuza Podcast, we welcome you again to our conversations. Thank you so much for tagging along. I hope that you have been growing in your walk with the Lord. I don't know, what is the thing that is standing out to you as you continue to have these conversations? What is God saying to your life? What is He ministering to you about? Those are important things as you continue to tune in and connect with meaningful gospel conversations, even as it affects our daily life and matters of maturity. Life, that's the Greek word for life. Go and check it out, the Greek dictionary, you'll find it, maturity. Anyways, today we talk about sin, the deceitfulness of sin. As human beings, we often find ourselves falling into sin. Now, what is sin? Sin is living independently of God. It's rebellion against God. It's just you going against all that God has said. That is sin. And sometimes we do some things that are not necessarily wrong in our own eyes, but sin does not just have a connotation to wrong, but it's actually living independently of God. And that is something that we need to have in mind, even as we continue to look at ourselves before the eyes of God. No one is righteous. The Bible tells us that, and we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But how deceitful is sin? Now, to be deceived means somebody is making you believe something to be true and it is not true. So we are saying that sin has an ability to make you think that what you're doing is okay, even if it's not okay. That is what is called the deceitfulness of sin. And we want to explore that. What does that mean to me? Should it worry me? Should it bother me? Should I think most objectively about it so that I don't find myself just doing my own things, thinking that God is on board and kumbe nilimwacha kitambo sana? The deceitfulness of sin is our conversation for today. Now, remember that definition of sin. Sin is not just it doesn't just have a connotation to wrong things. Sin is living independently of God. Living independently of God. So you have that in mind as we build up on a conversation today, just how deceitful is this thing called sin. We have Edgar to help us have this conversation today, and truly yours, one and only, Saddam. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here today. The deceitfulness of sin. The Bible talks about the deceitfulness of sin, that it can actually harden our hearts. And that is one way I think the writer of Hebrews talks about, we need to keep in fellowship with saints so that we are not deceived, or we are not broken, we are not run down by the deceitfulness of sin. What does it mean for you when you hear the statement deceitfulness of sin? Quite briefly, before we just jump into the rest of the conversation.
It's basically the lies that sin brings to our minds and hearts.
Mm-hmm.
That it brings a certain lie that it will give a sense of pleasure if you do such and such a thing.
Right.
However, it does not give you the outlook of after you've committed it. It always gives you, if you do it now,
this is what you'll get now. Yeah, don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about the next step.
Specifically, the next step. Just think now. And many people fall as a result of that. And then the tomorrow comes, they are shocked. Oh my God.
Niko hapa, nimefika hapa aje. Right.
Kumbe, they were lied to. Sin created a lie in their hearts and they believed it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense then, Saddam, that many people then find themselves in these situations because the devil, after all, does not come with a fork and is not black with fangs, Dracula fangs?
Yeah. Paul writes Romans 7 as a Christian. Though many people debate that, but I think he's a Christian and he's saying, the things I do not want to do, I find myself doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the things I do not do,
I do not want to do.
I do not want to do.
I do, and those ones I want to do, I don't do. Right.
And he says, and therefore I find two laws waging war against myself, the war of the flesh and the war of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And then he cries out and he says, who can save me from this body of death?
Right.
And he says, thanks God be to Jesus Christ, who delivers me.
Right.
And for chapter 18, he says, therefore there is now no condemnation.
Mm-hmm.
He was aware of how sinful sin is even in him. Paul, think about it. Someone whom we don't associate him with any sin, but is aware that even himself, he finds himself doing the very things he do not want to do. So sin deceives. It's like, for me, a scammer.
Okay.
a scammer will come and tell you how that deal is good, and the only time you need to close it. Now,
if you don't, this opportunity is gone.
Yeah, the urgency of scamming is just remarkable.
Right.
And it is an element of deceit.
Right.
When
right.
the deal is so urgent. Yeah. So that is sin for you.
That is sin. And sin is quite deceitful. And we're saying that, you need to be careful, because as Edgar said, it promises you now, and Saddam is adding that it gives you an urgency of the fulfillment, of the now fulfillment. And that's where the deception is, to actually think that there's nothing else to do right now except for this now. And whatever it is, whether it is moral, whether it is, in business, things that are sinful, how do you know? They give you a false sense of urgency. It is now or never. Who said it is now or never? And so let's build this conversation. We're talking about then the deceitfulness of this thing that you're calling sin. What is number one mistake that people do, so then they get into this net, into this deceit that sin has?
You make light of it.
Okay.
You make light of it. You don't think of it as a huge thing.
Or you don't take it as seriously as it's right.
I mean, for Esau, it was a bowl of soup, my friend. Lentil soup, surely. Yeah, is that a thing?
For hiyo time kama kwanza ni vile unajua hiyo time hata wamediscover sijui aromat, sijui sauce
ni kamechemshwa
tu men labda chapwa spice 2-3.
Yeah, right. For Eve was, it looks good to the eye. Therefore it's like nice God to eat. You can be like God. You don't want to be like God.
I mean, look at what he has done.
Yeah.
You can actually do the same.
For David is, let me not go to war. Right. Let me walk. And he saw the woman. For us today is, it's just like a little sip. It's just one puff. I mean, nimekula tu mandas.
Ndio hiyo.
You know.
Sijakula nyingi. Moja tu.
Mandasi moja. Nimefanya makosa. Mandasi ni kitu ya kunyimana.
Mandasi.
Like you make very light of it.
Right.
And the moment you now realize you're making light of something that inherently it's wrong, then you're getting down the drain. Sin has caught his claws on you.
How dire are those consequences then? Because if we are making light of it, if I'm not taking it as seriously as it's supposed to be, then that also means that I'm not thinking about the consequences as seriously as I'm supposed to think. Just maybe we can just be.
You don't even have time to think about the consequences at that moment.
How crazy are those? What are the examples of the consequences? How insane could it get?
One puff, you might go crazy if it is bang. If you sniff addictive stuff like heroin and cocaine, you become an addict.
Right.
You get into, you kiss, you fall into sexual sin, you get a disease. But the greatest consequence is grieving the Holy Spirit if you're a Christian. If you're a non-Christian, it's going to hell.
It's going to hell. That this thing is bad than you think.
Yes.
So don't make light of it.
Don't make light of it.
So how does somebody not make light of it?
By thinking about it more than just the pleasure it gives.
Okay.
By having a higher view of God.
Because
one of the main reasons people don't make a lot of sin is because they don't make a lot of God. So have a very high view of who God is. Then you realize sin is against God. And therefore, I cannot sin against God. And that is David's repentance. He says, it's to you only have I sinned against. Because now for him, it was not just about Bathsheba. It wasn't about Israel. It wasn't about his wife and his kids. It was about God. Like, this is the highest being you can ever sin against.
Right.
So sin is sin because it is against God.
It is sin because it's against God.
Yeah, so make a high view of God, and you will see the more you will look at sin with a lot of weight.
Right.
No matter how small it may be.
So you're basically saying that, sin, if sin is not serious before your eyes, is because God is not serious before your eyes. I mean, that's pretty much what you are. That's the deduction you're making, right? That if I see God for all he is, then he will give me his perspective about what things truly are. And there's that hymn that you need to probably want to listen to it. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full into his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim. It is not an event. And that's something that we need to remind the people who are tuning in. It is not an event. Turning our eyes to Jesus and making much of God so that we can make much of what sin is not an event. It's not something that I do today for the rest of the year. Alafu 2024 nimemaliza, sawa, acha tungoje next year time kama sasa tena nitarudi, then I will just refocus and then zoom and then no, it's daily. It's daily. Something you do kila siku. So then you're not just saying, oh yeah, once in, I did this once for all. No. If you make light of sin, you're saying it is going to get the best of you. Edgar, can you just chime in this conversation? What else do we see as a very critical precursor to us falling into the deceitfulness of sin?
Well, it brings about, once you've made light of sin, once we have seen sin as simply, we have seen the now of sin and not the after the committing of sin, what comes is we desire and we start entertaining it. Is this something good I can do? I've seen, Eve has seen the tree, it looks beautiful. Yeah, he's making a lot of sense when he says that, did God really say about that tree? Then there's David not being at war. He's walking around. He just sees this beautiful woman and he's like, okay, we are alone. No one may know. She's beautiful. I'm here. I'm not at war. I'm idle. Then we have King Saul. King Saul has been told, go to the Amalekites.
Finish.
And what was as you say, finish them all. What does he do? He's like, the fat animals though, sacrifice.
Hizo makondoo zilikuwa
Hizo
zinakaa
makondoo
vizuri.
zinakaa poa sana.
Niliona kwanza nikaona tu God waters easy to
Kwanza tasi ati nimejichukua kwangu. Hii
Hii
nimekuletea.
yangu.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Hii yangu, hii ni yako. And we see what that led to. So it's
Right.
that entertaining and desiring aspect of sin that comes out. And
Right.
that is a wrong thought to have, that we can just entertain, we can just desire sin without the consequences of it.
What makes one remain there? What makes us desire? What makes us get to entertain? If I'm watching a movie, at what point am I getting entertained? Is it the first minute or the longer I stay in the movie?
The longer you stay.
Yeah.
The longer I stay in the movie. So maybe shed light on that, because sometimes we think, no, see it to me once time, but how does the desiring, because it's continuous, and the entertaining?
As you've said, when you are in a movie, usually the quote is, if you are not hooked in the first 30 seconds,
right,
it's usually impossible to continue. So once you are hooked, you'll
30
continue.
seconds.
Yeah, it's usually 30
seconds. Ni after zile mawadi zimeenda hivi sijui,
There's usually, the hook usually comes from the beginning, and so you continue with it. And that's what sin does as well. It makes you turn your eyes and linger on it for too long, to the point where it becomes, you start thinking this wrong is actually a right. And what it actually does is something that Dietrich Bonhoeffer says, is that it doesn't make you hate God. Sin doesn't make you hate God. It actually makes you forget God. And that's why Paul in Romans 13, when actually that's maybe my favorite part of Romans 13, 11 to 14, he says, because you are saved, because salvation is near, wake up. Do not sleep. Wake up. Because tying back to Romans 6, sin is not just at now you are saved. Sin will be like, I'm gone.
Huyo amenitoka, man.
Huyo si wangu anymore. No, actually sin will attack you even harder because you are saved. And so Paul in Romans 6 is saying, ensure that you don't give sin an inch. Because if you give sin an inch, well, it will kill you, as the quote by John Owen, be killing sin, or sin will be killing you.
Right.
So if you linger for too long, it becomes like a David. You commit the act. It becomes like a Eve. You eat the apple. It becomes like a Saul. You keep the fat animals. And then we have the example, there is a reason Jesus in the New Testament, he says, do not lust, do not be angry, because he knows it always starts from the heart. And that heart brings out a desire and an entertainment that will lead to the action of sin itself. Yeah.
Interesting. That desire leads to the entertainment of the sin. If you linger there for so long, you will be consumed by that space. And think about it as in like a movie that you're entertaining yourself with. The more you watch, the more you continue watching. If you ever stopped a movie in the first minute, you will not watch 120 minutes. But if you do not stop at the first minute, then you will watch 10 and 30 and 1 hour and the whole thing. And that's the same thing with sin. If you do not stop, then you will continue. The desire will grow. And it says, and James says it as well, when those wicked, evil thoughts, when it grows, they produce sin. And sin, when it is fully matured, produces death. So there is that, we can see it's like, this is not just something that is there. Haiko tu hapo hivyo, inaendelea kikua. Na ukiacha igrow sana, inaleta many other things. Desiring and entertaining sin. Crazy, man. You need to be wary about it. How do you engage your mind then with things that will help you to refocus on God? One of the places that you want to visit is www.kuzap.com. And you'll find resources there that will help you to engage your heart and remain in the things that you need to remain with, or even as you continue to fight and wage war against sin. Check out the blogs, check out the podcast, check out the videos that are there to help you to learn and love Jesus Christ. You also want to download the app on your phone if you have not yet done that already, so that you're able to engage with daily devotions, things that can help you to connect with your soul. And definitely, this is a very transferable. Share with your friends, and that's going to be a good thing. Now, if we make light of sin, we are falling into its deceitful ways. If we continue desiring and entertaining and remaining in the space of sin, we are falling into its deceitful ways. So what then does that cause us to want to think about automatically? So if I am making light of sin, if I am desiring and entertaining sin, then it means I'm not guarding myself. Maybe sometimes we can just build or something on that. How does that become a critical conversation in terms of guarding myself, my mind, my the walls that I've set around myself? Why is that a matter that we need to look at right now? And why shouldn't we take it lightly?
When you're driving, and you're driving along the escarpment, if you've ever gone to Nakuru, so you see that escarpment there.
Mahio.
You see it. There is a guardrail. Mahio. Majimoto.
Nyogo.
So you see the guardrail there.
Yes.
You don't want to drive near it.
No.
People drive away.
Yeah.
Like you want to keep
wise people
at the center of the road as possible. Again, you don't want to also drive on the other side of the road, right, because there is a demarcation of a line. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you keep where you are supposed to be.
Keep the grid, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So guardrails basically are to tell you, stay as far as you can. Don't come
ujaribu kuona what will happen.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You're not supposed to come closer.
They're not saying we are here, dare us. No.
Apana.
Okay.
They're there to tell you, songa mbali. And so God has given us the guardrails, and this, I call them the means of grace. Use them. Prayer, reading and study of the word, fellowship with believers, and evangelizing. Okay? Those will help you keep away from sin. I don't know how specifically, but by just doing them, God uses that to guard you from sin. And then, individuals have always developed guardrails for themselves. You know how susceptible you are to a particular sin. Mm-hmm. Wewe ni mlevi, acha kutembea karibu na bar. All right?
Right.
You God has saved you from that. Avoid those areas. Kwa sababu hiyo chupa pia iko na sauti, itakuita.
Itakuita na majina za ushago. Zile, the intimate name.
Yeah. You struggle with same-sex attraction. Avoid areas and things that encourage that. Itakuita. Because you see, we are susceptible to particular sins as individuals. That is given. Some of us are selfish by nature. We just love things for ourselves, hoarding things and getting things from people.
Right.
Guard yourself from that. Create boundaries that will keep you from that. Is it maybe porn? You might want to sell your iPhone or whatever and get a katululu. Is it maybe watching movies that you're binge watching, you're wasting your time, which is sin and lazing around? Stop watching movies. Is it the music you listen? Stop watching those music and find better music to listen. I mean, those are guardrails individuals create for themselves. And so for you to avoid that, stop toying with the guardrail, stop getting too close and, unashika unaona how ni moto aje. No, don't do that. Stay far away from the guardrail as possible.
Right. Stay far away from the guardrails as possible. Now, what are some of those guardrails then? I mean, other than just evangelism, because you see somebody might be thinking, hey, sharing the gospel and maybe, you know what? That is practical in as far as outreach is concerned and building our faith. You've mentioned probably, if it's a phone, if it's pornography and an internet-enabled phone and all those things. And so maybe help somebody who's probably sitting there and thinking, what does toying means? What does playing around with them means? How does it look like? Because it can be quite subtle sometimes. For instance, like same-sex attraction, it can come quite subtle, and somebody's thinking, but me, I just think I'm having a good relationship, a best friend of mine here, blah, 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 blah. But things are going down fast.
So imagine now you are, God has saved you from, He has saved you, and then you were a homosexual. You are now a Christian, but you are alive to the fact that you are attracted to men,
right?
And you're a man. So one thing you want to do is to avoid company of such men,
right?
Men who are attracted to men. Those might be your friends before. They might be people who encourage you to feel that way and to do those things. So sometimes guardrails mean breaking families and friends, ties with such people who will cause you to sin.
They bring
in
you
such
back
way.
to the place that you're trying to get out of.
And this is not to say it is an easy thing.
No.
Trust me, it's hard. The other example is maybe you're an alcoholic, as I've said earlier. I mean, avoid friends who are alcoholic, avoid places where
those evening chill outs that we're just going to
get home early.
One for the road and then we go back.
Yeah, another good guardrail is find accountability partners and who you are being honest with. Tell Mavo, I'm struggling with alcohol. Please make sure every time at 5 you pick me from work, we go home together. I don't want to drink.
Right.
Yeah. Call me after every 30 minutes, just call me so that I do not fall into this. That will help you develop a discipline of self-control.
Right.
Yeah. So as individual, I think my greatest advice would be, as an individual, keep the 4 disciplines and also ask yourself, where am I most vulnerable to sin?
Right.
And then how can I guard myself against that?
Okay.
Because it is not, there is no formula for everyone.
No.
It is individual from individual.
Interesting. Okay, fantastic. Asante sana. I hope you're gaining several things right there. What is your flip button? What is that one that you're toying around with? And you know where you are at and you know what you need to do. Then start engaging. Don't procrastinate and say, yeah, man, I think kutoka next month na nikufanya hiyo. No, think about it now and see, in what way is sin already getting the best of you? And what are some of those things that you can pay attention to, especially when it comes to the things that you need to keep clear, keep away from? And can you start engaging, disengaging from those things now, so then you're not being caught up? Because the more you do it, the more you engage in it, the more you try to see how far can far go, you'll find yourself down under very fast. Let's try wrap the conversation with the whole. So there are these guardrails, as Saddam is saying. And David, let's use David for an example, right? And David goes and he is walking on the rooftop. And we thank God for matufari roofs. If you are walking on the rooftop, then Superman ama we ni kitu ingine, But he was walking on a flat roof, right? As you presumably. And he sees this woman taking a bath. And he starts a conversation and he said, I'm thinking as a human being, he saw the woman was beautiful. Now, before he concluded that, he must have had an evaluation process, right? Aliona na aka-evaluate ndo akakuja to the conclusion that this woman is beautiful. Yeah, and she's actually taking a shower. And kutoka hapo lazima kuna discussions ziliendelea kwa akili yake. Kuna inaitwangaje, kuna ka monologue. Kuna kitu kinafanyika kwa akili yake, ndo aende na hakuanga na simu, ndo aende atafute soja wake, boy wake fulani amwambie aje, enda kwa room number 9.
Ita ile mama.
Ambia hiyo nani. So there seems to be that kind of conversation. So we cannot just say that it just happened. Ati manze mimi nilikuwa nimekaa tu hivi hapo hivyo nikipray wadauzi wangu pale hivyo kwa field wakipigana, nikashtukia tu Bathsheba kwa area. Nikashtukia tu ati sasa manze kameenda, you know. So how crazy and could that get, and how critical is it for us to notice or to recognize the fault in negotiating with the flesh? Unaingia na flesh yako kwa discussion. Ndo mi kitu. Hiyo harufu inanuka vibaya lakini sijai. Labda you're feeling lakini you know that kind of thing. Just help us to build on that.
Yeah, that is true. Even using the analogy Saddam has brought, the guardrails on the road, ni huyu mtu ana speed, huyo mtu a connects na mwambia calm down. Kuna guardrails pale. But he's like, I need to acha nigonge
nione vile
venye kutaendelea. Right. But the reality is, again, the now of sin does not tell you, nikigonga tuta fly off the guardrail na tuanguke kwa river and maybe die. And that's what sin does to you. It makes you start questioning, as you said, the idea, making you think you've made light of sin, you've now desired and entertained it, you are now toying with the guardrails. Now all that remains is negotiating with the flesh so that you can actually act on the sin. And that's why Paul again is reminds us time and time again, do not give the flesh an opportunity. Do not always put on the armor of light. Don't engage your flesh in anything, because when you do, what happens, as Romans 7 says, I'll do the things I ought not to do. We'll find ourselves there. And that was the case with an Eve or a David. David is a particular example that, who knows, maybe the soldier he asks to find out about Bathsheba. Maybe the soldier was coming to him and telling him, by the way, she's married, David. Don't try that. She's married, and she has her grandfather is one of your most trusted men. So do not try that. But David was already in his head, was like, she's beautiful. I need to know her, as the Bible would call, sex. I need to know her. And so that's what happened. We have Amnon and Tamar, the ugly situation that happened there. Amnon convinced himself, I'm in love with this woman. And even Tamar was like, okay, it's fine. If you're in love with me, let's go through the proper channels.
Let's do it right.
Yeah, let's do it right. Marry me first, then we can, do what you want to do. But Amnon was like, I'm not having that. And so we know what happened next.
Right.
And that was sad. And that's the same case in our lives. We can be like, we are in love. We are already engaged.
Right.
Kwa nini? What is stopping us? We are, pombe, I'm now a Christian. We have now convinced ourselves, it has no hold over me.
I am a God.
I'm Psalm 82. Yeah. I'm a God. So I can take that.
Nitaikunywa and I'll tell it to be water in my body.
Sindio? That's a lie we are telling ourselves. And true. So that's where we find ourselves. We negotiate with our flesh, and we fall as a result. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, people, there's a lot more that we can say about this thing, but that's how deceitful it is. Stop negotiating with your flesh. It's the worst thing that you can ever imagine. You do not trust your flesh. Your flesh will bring you down. It will lead you to sin. Don't toy with the guardrails. Don't try to push and see how far can far go, because sin is deceitful. That's the thing. And it is deceitful because it is desirable. All right, so don't just say, "Oh, sin is nasty." The effects are nasty, but when it presents itself, it is so desirable, and there is a lot of warning in Scripture against that. To find yourself just leaning and trusting in the Lord, even as you continue to grow in your most holy faith. In the next, maybe like 5 seconds, parting short.
Trust in God for the salvation of your soul. Him alone will save you from this deceitfulness of sin.
Right. Edgar.
I'll just repeat what I said. Be killing sin, or sin will be killing you.
Right. Be killing sin, or sin will be killing you. When John Owen wakes up from his sleep, he'll be glad that a Kenyan can actually quote him. Right. Well, be killing sin. Paul says it in Romans 6:11. Read that. Mortify that flesh, because sin is deceitful. Till next time, www.kuzaapp.com is where you want to go and check out all those things as you continue moving on. Take necessary steps for you not to be overcome by the deceitfulness of sin. Mungu akubariki sana. Until next time, Kuza Podcast, we're out.
Thank you for listening to the Kuza Podcast. Brought to you by kuzaapp.com, an online ministry with blogs, videos, podcasts, and a mobile app. Make sure to subscribe to get more content to help you grow spiritually.